Okay, let's talk about one of the most polarizing books out there, Robert Greene's The 48 Laws of Power. Seriously, people either treat this thing like a Bible for getting ahead, or they call it a straight-up sociopath's handbook. There's really no in-between. It's basically a masterclass in the cold, hard game of power.
And yeah, this quote from the original gangster of power politics, Machiavelli himself, pretty much sets the tone. This is the kind of ice-cold, brutally practical advice you're going to find on every single page. This book is not here to make you feel warm and fuzzy. It's about the raw mechanics of influence in a world that, let's be real, doesn't always play nice. So that brings up a pretty big question, right? What if your whole life is this high-stakes game, but you were handed the wrong rulebook? Or maybe no rulebook at all? Well, think of this as your sneak peek into that secret playbook. We're going to break down 3 of its most powerful and, yeah, notorious laws, using some wild historical examples to show you how they work.
All right, first up, we've got a lesson in subtlety. See, not every law in this book is about being a loudmouth or using brute force. Some of the most effective moves are about getting exactly what you want without ever looking like you're fighting for it. It's all about proving your point, not just shouting it from the rooftops.
And that leads us right to Law 9. Win through your actions, never through argument. The logic here is kinda genius. When you argue with your boss or someone above you, you're basically forcing them to defend their ego. You might win the argument with facts, sure, but the resentment you create, that'll come back to bite you, guaranteed. You might be right, but in the long run, you still lose.
So, let's set the scene for a classic power play. You've got the one and only Michelangelo, the legendary artist. And then you've got his patron, this big-shot official in Florence named Soderini. Soderini paid for this massive, beautiful statue, and now he's here to inspect the final product. And of course, he fancies himself a bit of an art critic.
And this is where it gets good. Soderini takes one look at this absolute masterpiece and goes, you know, the nose is too big. Now, Michelangelo knows the nose is perfect. He's Michelangelo. He could argue, show him diagrams, prove him wrong. But what does he do instead? He plays his boss like a fiddle. He grabs a chisel, palms a little handful of marble dust, climbs way up the scaffolding, and just pretends to chisel the nose, letting the dust fall. He doesn't even touch it. Soderini, watching from below, sees the dust fall, thinks he sees a change, and shouts up, "Ah, perfect! Now you've really brought it to life."
So get this. Michelangelo won twice. He protected his art, and he made his boss feel brilliant and important. He let Soderini feel right, which is so much more powerful than being right. That is a total boss move for dealing with a fragile ego. You demonstrate your point so cleverly that they think it was their idea the whole time.
Okay, on to our next lesson. We're shifting gears here from that subtle influence stuff to something way more ruthless. This one is a hardcore strategic move. It's all about how you deal with a problem by going straight to the source and isolating it. Law 42 is stone cold. Strike the shepherd and the sheep will scatter. The logic is this. If you've got a group that's causing you trouble, whether it's at work, in politics, whatever, that negative vibe, that troublemaking spirit, usually comes from one single influential person. You can argue, you can try to win over the group, but the trouble's not going to stop until you neutralize that one key individual. Cut them off, and the group just falls apart. And this story about Dante is the perfect, brutal example. Back in the 1300s in Florence, the famous poet Dante was also a really powerful politician, and he was the biggest thorn in the side of Pope Boniface VIII. Dante was the shepherd, the charismatic leader of the opposition. The Pope couldn't break the group, so he went after the man. He lured Dante to Rome for some bogus peace talks, and while Dante was stuck in Rome, the Pope's allies stormed Florence and took over. With their leader physically gone, Dante's entire political party just collapsed. He was exiled for life, a shepherd with no flock. It's a harsh lesson for sure, but the law is basically saying, if you want to solve a problem for good, you have to find its source. It's about identifying that one person who's the linchpin, the one stirring the pot. You take them out of the equation, and the whole operation just goes belly up. And for our final lesson, let's pivot to social dynamics. This one is really interesting because it's about building power and value not by what you do, but by what you don't do. It's about learning to master the art of absence. Law 16 is all about the simple economics of supply and demand. The more you're seen and heard from, the more common you become. It's that simple. If you're always around, people just start to take you for granted. But if you pull back, if you make yourself scarce, your value just skyrockets. Your absence makes people wonder about you, talk about you, and ultimately it makes them want you around more. The book tells the story about a medieval troubadour to show how this works in the game of love, which, let's face it, is its own kind of power game. This guy was head over heels in love, but he made a classic mistake that, people still make all the time. So he felt his lady was getting a little bored with him, so he did what most of us would do. He tried harder. He was everywhere, all the time, showering her with attention. And what happened? She got even more distant. By making himself so available, he was basically putting himself on the clearance rack. It was only when he was forced to actually disappear from her life completely that she suddenly realized what she'd lost. Scarcity created value. His absence did what his constant presence never could. It rekindled the flame. So you're probably thinking, okay, cool stories about popes and artists, but what does any of this have to do with my life in the 21st century? Well, that's the whole point of the book. The stage might change, the costumes might change, but the game never ever changes. I mean, just think about it. The super high-stakes court of a king isn't really that different from your modern office. The king is just the CEO, the one with all the power. Those ambitious courtiers trying to get ahead, they're your colleagues, all jockeying for position. Royal favor is just a promotion or a fat bonus. And getting banished from the court, well, that's just getting fired. The human drama, the ambition, the jealousy, the backstabbing, it's exactly the same.
And that is the absolute key takeaway here. The technology, the setting, the clothes we wear, all of that is just window dressing. The fundamental things that drive us as people, envy, insecurity, the hunger for control, ambition, those things don't change. That's why these laws are timeless. They're basically hardwired into human psychology.
Which leaves us with the million-dollar question, doesn't it? Is this book a guide for becoming a ruthless, calculating predator? Or is it actually a defense manual, a way for the rest of us to recognize the power games that people are already playing all around us and protect ourselves? The book never really tells you. It just lays out the cold, hard rules of the game and leaves you to decide if you want to be a player or a pawn.